You are listening to Let It Out with me. I'm your host, Katie Dalebout, and this is the podcast where I talk to fascinating, creative people who do all sorts of different things for a pretty long time. If you're new, welcome. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you keep listening. I've been doing this since 2013. There are over 200 and some episodes. This is actually a great episode to be our 222nd because my lucky number is 222s, 22, all of the above. I really like twos. So this week I have musician Trevor Hall on the podcast. We talk about relationships being mirrors, his relationship with his wife. We talk about decision making, which is something that I've been really struggling with. We talk about Saturn returns, creativity. We talk about surrender quite a bit. It's just a really great conversation. Trevor is a delight. I'm really glad he got to do the podcast. I'll tell you how I was introduced to his music in the episode, so I'll just wait for that. But first of all, if you have been listening for a long time and if you're new and you want to support the podcast, the best way to do that is to subscribe however you're listening and share this podcast with a friend. It's really easy to do that if you're in the Apple app. You guys know how to use a phone, but basically there's this button and you can just send an episode to a friend. So if you know someone who loves Trevor's music or you think might love Trevor's music or him as a person, or this episode made you feel less alone or inspired you, or just you want to share it, that would be really cool. Also, leaving a review on iTunes helps. And yeah, I just wanted to say that. Thank you so much for listening. And okay, so I mentioned last week and the past couple that I'd been working on something, and I told you about LaunchPod. It's a thing that I made, and I'm really proud of it. I kind of was in a cocoon all winter working on this project, which is an online workshop that helps other people learn how to not learn how to podcast. It does do that, but also like take a creative idea and make something from it. So it takes you through everything from coming up with an idea, naming it, getting it to iTunes, the technology, the microphones, recording, all of that. And then also interviewing, that's my favorite part of it. There's a module around that's way longer than all the others because I just loved making it so much. And then also monetizing it and eventually having sponsors. And I give away all of the email templates of how I reach out to guests and Excel trackers, and same for sponsorships. So there's all of that information, but that's like the worst part of it. The best part of it is that I talked to over 12 other podcasters. Other people opened the kimono on how they started their podcast. Everyone from Just Renan, Just Lively, so many people who I really genuinely love their podcasts were really open with me. The girls from Being Boss, the girls from Not So Retrograde. And it's probably the thing I'm most proud of that I've created. And I love my book, but I don't know. I'm feeling I love that book, and you should read it if you haven't, check it out. But I'm feeling further and further from it. And what's really inspiring to me right now is making this podcast. And I want to keep doing this. I want to make another podcast. I'm actually leading an event tonight at the Wing, the co-working space I work from in New York, a panel about podcasting because I love this so much. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you guys about that. If you want to sign up for it, do it now because there's an early bird deal situation where the price is going to go up. It starts June 4th just because we want people to sign up now and get in now so we can, just like you want people to RSVP for your party. It's just that's all. But if you want to save $100, you can by being a listener of this podcast. So use the code LETITOUT at checkout. That's LETITOUT. And that's it. That's really all I have to say. If you want to start a podcast or you know someone, check it out. If not, no biggie. Get on to this episode. Hopefully you already 15-seconded through. But thank you for letting me talk about it because I genuinely am really excited about it. And there's one more thing about it. I think I said this last week, but there's a contest associated with it. So to get people to actually make a podcast after they do the course, I am picking one. You can submit a full episode or 30-second clip that will air on this podcast channel, which will be really cool. That's all I want to say. I love you guys. I love this episode with Trevor. I'll talk to you at the end. Bye. This episode is brought to you in part by something I use and love called Acuity Scheduling. It's like a personal assistant for your schedule, only better. With Acuity Scheduling, people can quickly view your calendar in real time and, from your availability, select the date and time that works best for them to meet with you. They can even pay in advance if they're booking a session with you, and they can cancel or reschedule on their own without having to clog your inbox. With Acuity, you can instantly schedule with real-time availability, meaning no double bookings and no more wasted time. You can set up automatic confirmations and reminders, and what I love most is that you can customize the colors and add your logo. Everything looks super sharp. To try it out, you can get an extended 45-day trial when you sign up totally for free at acuityscheduling.com/letitout. To get that 45-day free trial, go to acuityscheduling/letitout. This week's episode is supported by something called Fit Fab Fun. It's a seasonal subscription box with full-size beauty, fitness, fashion, and lifestyle products. It retails for $49.99, but has a value for over $200. I don't even know how they do that, but that's amazing. And if you use the coupon code LETITOUT, that's Let It Out, you can get $10 off your first box, which you'll find at www.fitfabfun.com. I think it's a really interesting concept. It's really cool. This Fit Fab Fun box feels like Christmas 4 times a year when it comes in the mail, and the products include everything from makeup to candles, accessories, self-care products like a massage roller, travel products, beauty finds. It's really great, and you can customize the products, add on what you want each season. It's different and it's a surprise. And the thing that I really love is the membership also includes access to Fit Fab Fun TV, which has a variety of workouts and meditations that you can do anywhere. And I love that because I love to do workout videos at home. I think it's so much fun, and I really like Fit Fab Fun, and I think you guys will too. Just check it out. Again, you can get $10 off your first box by using the code LETITOUT at checkout. That's Let It Out. And the items include everything from Tarte Makeup, which is a natural makeup line I like, Juice Beauty, which you know I also really love. There's so many great things in there. It's really fun, and I think you guys will really like it. Thanks, Fit Fab Fun. Well, thanks for doing this. We're really just going to be chatting like we are right now, so it's pretty organic and informal.
That's how I like it.
Cool. Well, I like kind of starting in the present. So what have you been learning, contemplating, realizing super recently, like in the last week or even day?
A lot. I'm in I feel like I'm like in this crazy not like crossroad, but almost just a lot of stuff happening just with our music and project, and trying to get it out there. And with that though comes, music is such a tool, meditation for my own self and my own growth, really. So with that comes a lot of self-growth, and but really in the last couple of days, it's been kind of the theme for like a while, maybe months or a year, but in the last couple of days, it's really come to a head point for me where it's all kind of coming together about the two main things really are surrender and speaking my truth, which is kind of a self-discovery, type of process at the same time. So that's kind of the main thing. And it can be scary to surrender. It can be scary to speak your truth, but when all the signs are pointing to that, there's no other way,
Yeah. How do you remind yourself? I don't know if this is a question that can be answered easily, but how do you remind yourself to surrender, because I think that's like, I don't know, I've said this before, and I think this is true, that I feel like every type of traditional practice or religion even, or, you know, therapy, like it's all to try to help us as humans with the fact that we can't control everything, and we, even though we try, and that exact piece of work of surrendering. So how do you remind yourself to do that, I guess?
Well, I think you know, life kind of, it almost forces us to surrender, you know, or each experience, different experiences that we have, you know, we can either, you know, hang on, you know, or open our hearts and surrender. And so it's, for me, it's not so much a question of like being reminded, because I don't think surrender is like something that you can just like learn, you know, like, oh, I'm going to read about it and then I'm going to do it. You know, surrender comes from living and experience and actually walking on your own path, you know. And for me, every time I think I've understood like what surrender is, or like be like, oh, I'm surrendered, you know, like I'm good. I'm surrendered. Something happens where it knocks you back on your butt, you know, and you're humbled, and you're like, whoa, like I am not you know, I have not surrendered. I need to open up even more and more and more. And it's like this ever growing continual process of checking in and letting go. And I think a lot of us, I mean, for me, I think I've had this misconception of like surrender as like kind of being complacent. You know, like I think that's a common misunderstanding for us, where we're like, oh, I'm surrendered, you know, I'm not gonna do anything, you know. And so kind of learning that that's maybe not what surrender is, you know, and kind of like, I guess, rewiring my own brain, you know, and my own heart as to what that means. And that's been a really interesting journey last few months, few days like this.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought that up, because I was having kind of a weird day with that today, in fact, and I had this mantra, I guess, or just this line that's definitely not mine, come into my head, which I'm sure is like a cliche. It's probably like on t-shirts, but it's true. But it's like, what we cling to hurts us, and that when you let go, you know, the universe can conspire to figure things out for you better than like us clenching, which is definitely my default thing to do, and I think a lot of people. And when you were talking about like how surrender isn't something you just read about in a book and like apply to your life, it's not most of these kind of lofty concepts that we talk about, which I so wish that they were. Even though that's true, it doesn't make it less annoying that, you know, you can't just like apply it and put it on like a new outfit. You have to like fall into it. And but I do think that, and I'm curious to hear what you think about this. So something that really helped me last week, I'm pretty sure this is a Ram Dass quote, but he says this thing about how knowledge, and kind of like what we were talking about, like reading it in a book or something, can actually be a way in, but it's like you're using one thorn to get rid of another thorn, which is
that's Sri Ramakrishna said that.
Oh yeah, and it really like hit me hard because I feel like it's kind of been my way in, is to like learning the information makes me feel like I'm doing something, but really I need to learn it and then get it out of my mind and apply it. Have you talk about
Very
that?
interesting. Yeah, Sri Ramakrishna said that. He said like knowledge is, you know, you have a thorn in your foot, right? And that thorn is ignorance, right? And you use another thorn to get that thorn out, right? And that you use the thorn of knowledge to get it out. But then you don't keep the thorn of knowledge, you know, you throw both out, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, very beautiful.
Really helpful, yeah.
Yeah, but, you know, that's kind of what, like, my journey has been the last couple years is with my new project, The Fruitful Darkness, and that's kind of like what I kind of went through of this kind of and I'm still going through, of studying for so many years and learning um and kind of like basing my personality and my ego like off all these different things.
Yeah.
And then I had this moment a couple of years ago where I started to feel like these things were all slipping away from me, and I had no connection with these things anymore. And all these things that I based my whole person on now were like leaving me in a way. And it was very scary because I based, my whole like, oh, this is who I am. This is who I am. But then that thing would go and I'd be like, oh, well, who am I? Who am I? And it was a period of just like, I have no idea who I am. I've learned all these things, right? I've based my journey off these things, and now I feel alone. But it was in that raw state, that beautiful raw state of me being kind of stripped apart, for me to really go into my own truth and say, who am I? Who am I? And not be afraid and turn in and face that darkness,
Yeah.
And then slowly, all these things started coming back to me, but I had a different relationship with them now. It was a much more open, clear relationship. And I felt even more connected than I did before when I thought I was so connected, like this. So it's that period, I think, of where we learn all these things, and again, like I was saying earlier, like it just happened naturally. It just the process happened, and I went through it, and that was that. So there was this element of surrender, where there's whatever you want to call it, great spirit or God or love, that there's something working. There's something working. I think when we look back on our lives, like, I think we all have certain experiences where we're like, oh, how did that happen? That was like perfect timing. Even like this horrible thing that happened to me, that really was perfect for me,
Mm-hmm.
and that surrender, hey, the strings of my life are in, that spirit's hands, that is, it's a deep state, and it's just a constant process of going deeper and deeper into that state. For
Yeah.
me at least. I don't want to speak for everybody. Yeah.
No, I relate to that, at least speaking for myself. Can you get into some of the specifics of what you lost and what you found again? Was this your Saturn return?
Yeah, so my Saturn return. So my Saturn return, everybody's Saturn return is different depending on where your Saturn sits.
Yeah, can you maybe define it for people listening who maybe don't know what
Yeah,
it is? I don't
so
know that much about it.
Saturn return is when we're all born and we all have our astrology, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're like, hey, I'm a Leo or you're a Sag or like this,
Mm-hmm.
But there's
I'm
so
a
it's such
Taurus.
you're a Taurus, very
Yeah.
good. So there's so much deeper. It goes so much deeper than that, right? Because there's where all the planets sit at the time of our birth is called our chart, right? Venus, Mars, Saturn, Jupiter, all these things come into factor, and we're built in this way, you know. And each planet is kind of governing a certain area of our lives, right? So Saturn is the planet. It's a tough planet. My teacher kind of refers to Saturn as like the high school principal of the zodiac, like behind his desk like this. But it's the planet of life lessons. And wherever Saturn sits at the time of our birth, it determines what we've kind of come to learn in this life, right? What we need to kind of learn in this incarnation. So my Saturn was in Sagittarius in the first house, right? And so a Saturn return is when we go through our lives, right? The planets are turning around like this. And Saturn return is when Saturn returns to the exact point, exact position of when you were born, right? And it's usually, there's kind of two big ones. There's one when you're like 27 to 30, and the next one is from like 58 to 60, like this. So it can be kind of a tough time, but it can be a time of great learning and great, understanding. So my Saturn return, it had to do with self-discovery, really. And it's really kind of the theme of my life. I'm always want to seek my own truth and find out who I am in the deepest sense. So my Saturn return, all these things that I kind of based myself off of, like these belief systems or relationships with different yogis and saints like this, it for some reason it all kind of felt so far away. And I realized I was really basing so much of my beliefs and things off these different people, but which is fine, which is good, but I never really asked, like I kind of suppressed like what I really felt and what I really believe in, despite, with no other influence like this. And that's in the beginning, it was very scary because it was so dark, and I felt like I didn't know who I am, because we base ourselves off of different things. And when those things disappeared, I felt really lost and really alone and not connected to anything. And my Saturn return was that process of going inside and listening to my own self and trying to speak my own truth and build my person in that way, in that sense.
Yeah. What things came out of that? Is it kind of your new album, your new work, creatively, relationship wise, like spiritually? What would you say were some of the, I guess, not to be cheesy, but like the gifts from your Saturn return?
Well, it's very subtle for me. I think that um, obviously the album came out and all those songs have to do with different experience that I had during my Saturn return. So I'm grateful that I was able to have those songs for reference, because the songs are really my teachers. The songs are like my they're singing me. They're singing to me. So I'm grateful for that. But for me, it was kind of not to bring it back there, but surrendering, into myself. And because I put a lot of pressure on myself, to be, maybe to be things that I'm not, and when I went through my Saturn return, those things kind of fell away, and I was able to breathe a little bit because I had a little bit of a deeper understanding of who I am and what's my path,
Yeah.
on this journey. And that was such a relief, because I think all of us in some sense, we put so much pressure on ourselves, some more than others. And I definitely put a lot of pressure on myself, but I was putting pressure on myself to be in a way that maybe wasn't my way. And because I thought that it was right and the other thing was wrong, so to be able to let that go and just be, and learn how to listen to my own heart and guidance like this was really the gift, and it's a process that's still happening, but at least its intensity kind of really happened during those few years.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm 27 right now. I'm about to be.
Oh, so you're going in. You might
Yeah.
already be in.
My birthday's on the 30th, and I'm gonna be 28. So I'm probably in
Yeah,
it
you're
or
in. Yeah,
around
yeah.
it. what
Yeah.
are your words of wisdom for going in for me and anyone who might be going in or in it?
Well, it's funny because my wife, as soon as I got out, my wife went in. And it lasts 3 years, so it won't reach its intensity till it's like 20, you're like 29 or something like this. But all of everybody's Saturn return is different, right? Mine was a little more intense because of the position of some of my planets, right? But a lot of beautiful things happen, like, you know, during your Saturn return. It's just a time of change. I think it's a time of great growth. And there's nothing you can really do, to prepare for it. You just have to, I think, let it happen.
Yeah.
Just let it happen. It's funny, I when we were in India a year ago, I was in my Saturn return, and I went to a family's home in Calcutta, and the grandmother was cooking for me, and she was very cultured, very spiritual lady, and we entered this conversation, and I was, kind of just laying down my trip to her, about this and that, and what do I do, and blah, 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 blah. And she just looked at me, she said, "You just let it happen." And those three, it's such a simple, saying, but it had so much power behind it. And
Yeah.
I think about that line so much. We meet people in our lives like strangers. That was the only time I saw her. I was with her for like 2 hours. And they can say one thing to us that will stay with us forever. So that, with your Saturn return, you just let it happen.
Yeah. It's funny, the name of this podcast is Let It Out. So it's
There you go.
kind of a similar thing.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know where your Saturn sits or no?
I'm gonna look it up right after this.
Yeah,
I
you have to have
yeah.
your birth time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna look it up because now I'm really curious. So obviously you're pretty into astrology. How did you get into it, and what is, maybe other than Saturn returns, what is another great lesson that astrology has given you?
Well, I didn't really get into it by choice. I'm a spiritual guy, but I don't really like any like hocus pocus type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm kind of skeptical in that sense. And I think I had this perception of astrology as kind of being a little woo woo, like,
Yeah.
and not that I didn't believe it, but I just thought, oh, that's not for me. That's too like, whatever. And I was on tour, and I was having lots of problems with my health and all of these things, which was part of my Saturn return. And friend had written me as a gift. He said, "Oh, as a gift, I want to gift you a session with my astrologer." And I was like, "Oh God, I don't want this," But I didn't want to be rude, and not accept his gift, So I said, "Okay, like set it, you know." So I called in. Her name's Deborah Silverman. She's a very famous astrologer. She was like Sting's astrologer, like this. And I called in, and she didn't know. I just gave her my birth time and where I was born, and she just, in that hour, she just blew my mind. She read me like a book. She knew all the things that I get tripped up on, and she had amazing advice on what to do, like this. And she said, "Do you know that you're just entering your Saturn return? It's so funny that we're having this session, and you're just entering." I said, "No, I don't know." And if I didn't have her and her guidance, oh man, I think I'd be in a pretty rough spot, because she really helped me, But I think with astrology, she's kind of become like our godmother now. We're very close to her, and um, the astrology gave me the gift of being in the witness, and looking at this chart and how each planet makes up a certain part of our personality, right? it helped me step into the witness and look at myself from a neutral point of view. Like Ram Dass has a meditation where he just repeats over and over, I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. And it allowed me to look at myself not from a judgmental point of view, but from a place of kind of loving awareness. And to not beat myself up so much over like this certain part of myself or that certain part, and learn how to not so much be controlled so much, just witness, just witness, just witness. And that has been really healing for me, and really to understand myself and to understand how I'm made up. And also, I was learning astrology from Deb, and I've took her courses, and I've read so many people's charts since that time. It's become like a hobby of mine. And to read other people's charts, read like my parents' charts, right? And all the things that kind of annoyed me about my parents, I can see, oh, that's just how they're made up.
Yeah.
Like an element of compassion comes in. And all the things that I love about my parents, right? I'm like, oh, that's so beautiful because they have this aspect, that makes them very special, right? So it's just been a very cool journey, a very cool hobby, and I'm grateful for it to come into my life.
Yeah, I like that. It's much like in a similar way as like a personality test, not to be like I'm a victim of my planets, but to use it as
Right.
information about yourself and the people
Yeah,
around
absolutely.
you. So you can
Yeah,
navigate, being a person in the world.
yeah, definitely.
I want to go back a little bit further. So you mentioned, we talked about astrology and how you got into that, but you mentioned Ram Dass, and so many other spiritual concepts are obviously rooted in your work and in your life. So you grew up in South Carolina. What was your childhood like, and what was your relation to both music and spirituality growing up?
Well, my childhood was very blessed. I mean, my parents are amazing and very loving and supportive, and
Do you have brothers and
um,
sisters?
I have a younger sister who's an angel, and yeah, we grew. Hilton Head is a small town. It's very small, and the community is very tight. Like it's the type of thing where you like go to the coffee shop and you like know everybody, like type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up there, it's very beautiful. As far as the earth goes, there's lots of things to do outside. So I really grew up a lot in the earth, which was really important for me and very medicinal for me. And my dad is a musician, so ever since I was born, music has just been everywhere.
Oh, wow.
So music is just like life, like it's inseparable for me. It was
What
just
kind of
always.
musician is he?
He's a drummer.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a drummer, and he really, we had instruments all over the house, and it was just what it was. It's like life and music inseparable. Um, and music really helped. I just would always be listening to music or playing music like this. It was just my way of kind of escaping. It was my way of searching myself. It was my way of exploring my consciousness. It was just like so many things for me.
What were you listening to back then?
Anything. I was listening to, my dad was really into like the Doobie Brothers and the Allman Brothers, and I was listening to them, and then I was listening to like the Fugees, and then I was listening to like 311 or Bob Marley, and then I was listening to like Simply Red or like Earth, Wind and Fire. Like it just didn't matter. I just loved music.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was just really beautiful. But growing up in that place, I went to like a prep school, khaki pants, collared shirt, have to have your shirt tucked in, dress code, like this. And it was very like, okay, you go to school, you play a sport, whatever it is, you graduate, you go to college, preferably in the South. You know, it was just kind of everybody, da 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 da.
Cookie
That was,
cutter.
yeah, yeah. And I just hated that. I hated it. I was a rebel. I was always searching for something else, and I had a different kind of hunger, and I didn't know what that hunger was, but I just knew that this could not be it. This cannot be it. And I'm growing up. It's very affluent place, right? And very big tourist place, and lots of golf and tennis, and that was kind of the thing. And I think in the West, like, we learn, like, oh, like, grow up in, like, money, like, if you have money and, like, a nice big house and kids, like, it's success. you know it's happiness. But growing up as a kid, like, I'd grow up and people would have all these things and they'd be miserable, and my friends' parents would get divorced and fight, and I was like, this can't be it. This isn't it.
Yeah.
So that kind of planted this really burning seed in my heart of, like, I have to find it. I know it's out there. I hope it's out there, but I have to find it. But that place, Hilton Head, wasn't giving that to me.
Yeah.
So I had to leave. Yeah.
Were you, two things, were you playing music throughout prep school? And what was your spirituality growing up as a kid? Are your parents religious? What was kind of implanted from a young age?
Well, I was definitely playing music. I mean, that was my medicine. That was my that was my way out, while I was there. And it was very important to me. Every day after school, I'd come home, I'd lock myself in the playroom, and I'd just play and write songs and, just play, play, play. So it was my thing for sure. And my dad is very spiritual person, Christian man, plays drums in church, but not like very like rigid at all. Just very open, very loving, and he's like a child, He's like a innocent child. He's just such a loving person, and very magnetic. Everybody loves my dad like this. And my mom is not religious. She doesn't really go to church or things like this, but very, very spiritual and loves being in the earth and outside like this. So they're both extremely liberal, and didn't push me into any way or anything like this. So I had the freedom to kind of do my own thing, search my own way,
Yeah.
I guess.
Are they still in South Carolina in Hilton Head?
Yeah, they're still there. Yeah, they still live there.
What do they and your sister think of your music and your success? What has their reaction to it all been?
Well, they're like my biggest fans.
Yeah.
Like, they don't, I mean, they probably enjoy the rock and roll, like, kind of life more than I do. They just love the whole thing. They love going to shows. They'll come on tour, for a week, or still follow us on tour for like a week at a time. They're just the best. They're the best.
That's so fun. How often do you get to see them, and what does your sister do?
I don't get to see them as much as I'd like, just because they're so busy. But I get to see them, 3 or 4 times a year, maybe.
Yeah.
And my sister, she just got engaged, and
Okay, congrats.
her and her fiance live in Charlotte, and so they live close to my parents, so they get to see each other a little more. But we just try to make it work. If
Yeah.
we're on tour, we usually go back for the holidays. That's kind of a must. But yeah.
Yeah. I heard, and I'm sure they're so proud of you just in general, and also because of this, I heard that the beginning of your early music career was pretty tumultuous with record labels and getting your work out in the world. Can you talk a bit about your start and what that time was like for you mentally?
hmm Well, I had left Hilton Head, and gone to a boarding school in California because it was an art school. It was an arts high school, boarding school. And it really changed my life because it was the complete opposite of Hilton Head, and it was where Hilton Head was focused, didn't have any really focus on any type of art. This school was all about focusing on the arts and being creative, and it was an international school, so it just burst my whole world open. Some of the best years of my life there. And while I was there, I was writing music and making album like this, and going down to LA, every weekend or every other weekend, and the word, I guess, kind of spread, and record companies started coming around, and I met with all the major labels. I met with all the presidents, all like this, and we kind of narrowed it down to two labels that we liked, Columbia and Geffen, and they kind of battled it out, and we ended up signing a deal with Geffen Records my senior year of high school.
Wow.
So I didn't go to college. I just graduated high school, and I moved to LA, 18 years old, and got a shitload of money, and thought, this is it. Like, I'm gonna like be like famous, but it was awful, I was 18 years old. I had this big apartment on the beach, but I didn't know anybody. I had no friends because I went to a boarding school. So it's not like, you graduate school and people are still in your town,
Right.
I couldn't, so I wasn't in school, so I couldn't meet anybody. I couldn't go to any like bars or anything because I was 18, and I was in the city, and I was just miserable. And I was extremely lonely, and I thought, man, I should be happy, right? I like have this record deal, and I'm making music, but it was a lonely time. And then, I made this album, and the record company had a change of presidency, right? So everything got put on hold. So then my, musical, I guess, process got put on hold, and that album ended up getting shelved, which means, they keep it and they don't release it, And so a year went by, and the new president came in, and he wanted me to record another album. So I recorded another album, and that album also got shelved. And then I got dropped, from the label. And I'm like, 19 years old, And then all this money that I had, I had no responsibility. Nobody that young should have that much money. I just blew it, on like this big apartment and like, whatever it was. I was smoking a lot of weed at that time, and it just disappeared, and then I was broke. So it wasn't like very fun.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you come out of that? Kind of what happened next?
Well, through these dark times, that's kind of the theme right now. Beautiful things happen, and I ended up, because I had visited this temple in Laguna Beach, which is only like an hour from LA, while I was in high school, this Kali temple. And I was very taken by this temple and all the people there. So while I was living in LA, I would drive down there all the time because I was lonely. I also like little things, like I didn't know how to cook, and because I was 18, like boy, like whatever, and they would always serve me food. So I was hungry. So I'd always go down there to eat, and they would always just show me so much love in this, and I was very interested in this path, this Divine Mother, like this. So when I ran out of money, I moved down to Laguna Beach and got a very small studio apartment there. And I was going to that temple every day and just hanging out and learning and like this. And then was so broke that I couldn't afford to pay my rent anymore. I had like $900 to my name, something like this. And the temple said, "Well, you're here every day. Why don't you just stay here until you get back on your feet? You
Wow.
can stay here as long as you want, 2 weeks, month, doesn't matter." Right? So I said, okay. So I moved in because I had no other option really. I moved in and I didn't leave for 7 years. So I lived in the ashram for 7 years while I was, you know, touring and being a musician like this.
Wow.
So that was the biggest blessing of my life. They're like it's like the foundation.
So is that
It's,
what really opened you up to spirituality and Eastern concepts and things that are now, kind of a cornerstone of your practice and
yeah.
your music?
Yeah, well, in high school, in the at that boarding school, it started for me a little bit. Um, I saw a picture of Neem Karoli Baba, this very famous Indian mystic, and that was it for me. I felt this attraction, and because so it kind of started up there. I was reading a lot about Maharaji and a lot about India and stuff like this, and then but when I went to the temple and I started living in the temple, it became very deep for me, part of my life, and my music started to change and like this. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Well, then what happened next? So you get that huge record deal, you get all that money, you lose it, you make the album, you lose the second album, and then now you have so many albums. Your work is everywhere and it's so wonderful and deep. So what happened? What happened next? How did you end up getting your work out there after that?
Well, when I got dropped, it was actually kind of a celebration for us because, while we were on this label, we recorded this album, they shelved it. We recorded another album, they shelved it. Like I couldn't release anything because they had control. So when they dropped me, I was free. So it was actually it was actually a happy time for me. So right when we got dropped, I just recorded an album very cheaply through a friend of a friend, and we put that out. And that got the attention of a smaller, more indie label called Vanguard, and they came to a show and said, "Why don't you come by the offices?" And at first I was like, "No way! Like I'm never signing a record deal again," because
Yeah.
I had this whole experience. But they're like, "No, no, we're different. We're not a major label. Like just come and hang out." And I went to their offices and I was like, "Oh man, this is really cool. Like these people are like kind of like a little family, very down to earth, just seem like normal human beings." And so we signed a deal with them, and that's what the past, 4 albums had been released. The self-titled, then we did Everything, Every Time, Everywhere, Chapter of the Forest, and Kala. So
Wow.
that was very very blessing for me to sign with them and finally, get the music out there.
Yeah. What year was that first album came
That was
out?
in 2009 the first
Wow.
album came out, I
Yeah,
believe.
I
Yeah.
think I found you soon after that, and at my yoga studio, they would play your music, and then I loved it so
Uh-huh.
much, and I would play it when I was teaching, and it,
Oh,
I'm
wonderful.
so it's so cool that it made its way when it was meant to, and now
Yeah.
I really want to talk about your newest album, and it's so great, and it conveys the deep vulnerability of moving through the unknown as opposed to playing it safe, which I think we were kind of talking about at the beginning, and I relate to so much right now, and I think we all can as humans, but maybe me more so right now because of my Saturn return that I just learned about. But it's such a great concept for the new album. Could you talk about it a bit in your own words and how it's a departure from your previous work?
Well, the 2 albums before this one were quite stripped down sonically, right? They were much simpler. I recorded them. I mean, I made the demos, everything in my own home, and it was very healing for me to kind of simplify everything. And they're much more acoustic, much more, simple like this. Um, and then this album, The Fruitful Darkness, sonically it's different because I wanted to kind of go into the dark in the sonic world and use things that sounds and elements that I've never used before. And I've always kind of had, at home I'll make my own songs and stuff, and I've always had this kind of like electronic element, I guess, to some of my songs, but I never release them because I'm too scared. Because I think, oh, like this is not like the Trevor Hall that people know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this album, I was like, fuck it. I'm just gonna go for it, and I'm gonna surrender to my fear, and if this moves me, I wanna step into the unknown. I want to step into the unknown. So I worked with this amazing kid. His name's Sean Bowe, this producer in LA, and we hit it off, and we had this thing, and we just went for it, and we used sounds and elements that I'd never used before. So it's different in that way, that it's a little more produced and experimental than the last two albums. It's different also from on another level because it's my first independent release. So we had the freedom to really release it the way we wanted to and kind of call all the shots. And that's why we've released it in parts. There's 4 parts. The first 3 are out. The part 4 will come out in a couple months. But we put 3 to 4 songs on each part, and then we released these parts on the full moon, signifying the fruit in the darkness, right? And the reason I did this is because sometimes our times are changing, where we don't really have the same attention span as we once did, and when we release an album, 12, 13 songs, most people don't make it through the whole album. Even me, if I like a new album comes out, it's hard for me to make it through the whole album, even if the album is amazing, So I didn't want that to happen with this, and I wanted each song to get its proper space. I didn't want any songs to get lost. So that's why we broke it up.
That's really broke cool.
And did it in these parts, So it's different in that sense, as well.
I love that. It gives people something to look forward to. How have the parts that are out so far, how have they been received? Has anything surprised you?
Yeah, it's been crazy. It's been amazing to be independent. At the same time, it's definitely a lot more work, And I think the most amazing thing for me is that, our community, the villagers, we crowdfunded this album. So whereas before, you make an album and it's kind of in secrecy until it comes out and then people hear it. Where this album, it was like we were building it together and people were getting the songs as they were ready and stuff like this.
Yeah.
And I think people have really felt that sense of community and connection around this album more than other albums. And I think that's really special.
Are you touring right now? Have you been performing it?
Yeah, we just got back a week ago, and we leave in a couple of weeks to do Europe. And then we come back from Europe and we're buzzing around the States and Canada. So we're definitely in a busy time right now.
Yeah. Wow. So you just mentioned touring, and obviously you travel a ton. How do you stay grounded? What are some of your routines traveling and not? A question I usually ask on this podcast is everyone about their both morning and evening routines, maybe sharing the first 3 or 4 things you do when you wake up in the morning and the last 2 things you do in the evening. Can you talk about, kind of the traveling version of that and the home version of routine for you?
Well, when I'm at home, every morning, no matter what, I always take a shower. Just it's just like my thing. Like even if I've showered the night before, it's just a thing to like cleanse and then I sit. And at home I have the freedom to sit longer, because I have time and don't have to jump in a van to go to the next city.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm able to sit longer, and I try to take advantage of that time because it's important to me. Um, and then, the day happens like this, and then usually in the evening time we practice some yoga, and then we eat dinner and watch Netflix. So we usually just try to rest, and get our mana back.
Yeah.
But when I'm on the road, yeah, so when I'm home, I like to try to be in a routine because when you're on the road, there's not much of a routine. It's just kind of go, go, go. But when I'm on the road, I do always every morning I always take a shower and I sit. I don't sit as long, you know, but I always sit and I do my minimum practice. And that helps me just keep grounded and stay in the flow.
Yeah.
But the main thing for me is, being on the road, like in the past, like we're about to go on tour and I'll be like, oh man, okay, I'm going to do this, 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 and this is going to like help me stay grounded. And I'm going to do this and I'm only going to eat this and blah, 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 blah. And then you get on the road and you find you can't do those things. And then you get frustrated.
Yeah.
And then you get like this, like you get down on yourself and that throws you off balance, right? And
Yeah.
for me, the thing that I do on the road is try to just surrender and be in the moment. And that's
Yeah.
how I stay grounded and not be attached to my plans and not be attached to how I think the day should go. And, it's a time of flow. And that's what I think the road teaches us, or any type of travel. It teaches us to just let the way, guide
Yeah.
us,
Which
so
is really healthy.
yeah, yeah.
I love that. So when you're on the road, does your wife travel with you?
She usually travels with us, yeah, because she's in charge of all of our like social media, and she's a photographer, so she takes lots of pictures and video for us, and so she's usually out on the road with us.
That's nice that you guys get to be together.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk about relationships a little bit. How did you and your wife meet?
We met in India, actually. Um, I was going to India, for every year. Um, that was kind of like my vacation every year to myself. I'd always go during December and January. And our ashram there, our Guruji takes care of these young kids, these orphan children, or children that come from kind of tough backgrounds. He takes them in and clothes them and feeds them and shelters them, all like this. So the first time I went there, 2007, ever since that time, we've been just humbly raising money for Guruji and sending the money to him to take care of the kids. Like we'll put we have like a donation box out at shows, like just very simple. And one night you'll get a few bucks, and the next night you get a few bucks, and then you get home and you realize, oh, I got a few $100 here, to send to Guruji, and it goes a long way in India,
Yeah.
especially for that type of community, a poor community. So anyway, we were doing this, and my wife's family were very generous in their support for the kids, and I had met her mom and her sisters before I met her, and we were staying in contact because they were sending us money like this, and then
Because they knew you from your music?
yeah, they were fans, yeah, and they were coming to shows, and then they got involved with the children and were very supportive, and so then I was going to India, and her mom said, oh, my daughter is going to be in India. My other daughter is going to be in India. Maybe she can come and see the ashram. And I thought, yeah, of course she can come. But I never thought that in a million years she would come, because India's humongous. so I don't know what part of India she's going to be in.
Yeah.
And also, our ashram is not on the tourist, track. I
Yeah.
mean, it's very off the path, So I said, yeah, of course, she can come. And I was in India, and she emailed me, and she said, I'm in Benares, which was only like 3 hours from our ashram. And so she came.
Oh,
She
wow.
came for she came for a couple of days and met the kids and our Guruji, and that was it. And that's where we met. And then when we got back to the States, we just stayed in touch, and that's how it kind of happened.
Were you living in the same place when you started dating? And how did you know that it was the person that you wanted to be with, that she was your person?
Well, I we kind of skipped like the whole dating thing. I was never really a good dater. Like I just felt like this is so like weird. I'm just like sniffing out this person and this
Yeah.
person's like sniffing me out. Like I don't know. It just wasn't for me. And I was living in the ashram, so I didn't have a girlfriend for like 8 years. I wasn't with a girl for that long because I was living in the ashram,
Yeah.
you know. So I when she came along, um, and we were talking and like this, I mean, I just knew, like I was like, okay, like this is it,
Wow.
because I was very clear. I felt like, and and I just that was it. I mean, we only were together for like 8 months, and then we went back to India, and I proposed, and that was it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And how long ago was that? How long have you guys been
That was in
married?
2000. We got married in 2013, so it's been about 5 years.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
what is your greatest lesson on relationships, on romantic relationships? Like, how does it work well with you guys?
Well, it's not all like, flowers and and daisies. I mean, it's your partner is your partner, you know. They're the mirror. And
Mm.
and you're that person's mirror. And when you enter into a relationship, that person is going to show you parts about yourself that you didn't even know about, and show you your own patterns that you didn't even know that you were in, you know. And so it can be tough to look at, and but that's the struggle, and that's the glory of relationship, is to have your intention, I think, be to support each other's own awakening. Um, that's definitely been, I think, the greatest gift of being married for me, is um, having a partner, somebody that I can lean on, and that person can lean on me, but also to show me parts about myself that I would have never known if I
Yeah.
didn't if I didn't if I wasn't with that person. So that's, I think, the greatest thing for
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
That mirror thing is crazy. It's kind of like a Saturn return. Like it's so good and helpful, but can be so uncomfortable in some ways
Yeah,
to
yeah,
see
absolutely.
ourselves.
I think especially like if you're in like a relationship that is like you both are kind of very deep and spiritual people, and you're both working towards
Yeah.
like becoming better people or becoming deeper in your own spirituality. It's different than you're just like, oh, you're just a couple, and like you just want to
Right.
like whatever, just
Or
do whatever.
just or just you're two people trying to be better at being themselves. That's kind of how I think of it,
Hmm. Absolutely.
which is really the same thing. So I want to talk a bit about anxiety, and you spoke so eloquently on my friend Jordan's podcast earlier this year about how as a culture we're experiencing more anxiety as people, and how so many white people are drawn to indigenous teachings and ancient teachings. Can you talk a bit about that and what you meant?
Yeah, I mean, it's, for me, it's because I've had anxiety, um, deep anxiety in my past, and not really known where it's come from, and know a lot of people with anxiety and depression and these
Yeah.
types of things. And I don't know, like, in my generation, I guess, and even like the generations that are coming, um, I feel like, we're in this crazy time here where there's so much mental illness, or there's so much lack of connection, you know, and we all want that connection, but we're doing it in such a weird way, and you really only see it, I think, not only see it, but it's very prevalent in the West, you know, and we, as a culture, success is like, we're like, oh, our communication is so amazing, right? Like here we are, I'm like talking to you on my computer, with no cables plugged into it, you know, and I can see your face if I want to, we put on the
Yeah.
webcam like this, like, or I can FaceTime my dad right now. It doesn't matter where he is, And we're like, oh, we're so connected, you know, but we're not connected. We, we're able to go on our Facebook and, write people messages and friend these people. But when it comes to real life, being with people and hearing people out and serving people and talking with people, we isolate ourselves, and we have these, these big homes, with the fence around them, and we don't want anybody to come, it's just very interesting. And I think that we have all these things, whatever we do these things, and we realize, oh, we still feel so alone. And that loneliness, I think, creates isolation, which creates depression, which creates anxiety, like this. I do believe that, like, a lot of these things come from our lack of human connection or connection with spirit, right?
Yeah.
So as a result, you know, we look to these cultures where that connection was never broken, right? That umbilical cord to the earth, to the spirit, to each other was never broken. Those indigenous cultures, whether it be Native American culture, whether it be Aboriginal culture, whether it be Hawaiian culture, whether it be Indian culture, like this. And the ironic thing is that all these cultures are the cultures that our ancestors persecuted, you know.
Yeah.
And now all these kids, all of us now are coming back around to them and saying, "Hey, I'm sorry. Like, show me the way."
Yeah.
It's a crazy thing. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's totally crazy. Because as a Western culture, we look, oh, what is my culture? We have no culture. We have no culture. And we look to these people that have never lost their culture and have kept it alive, you know? And it's just amazing to me. It's just so amazing to see that circle, come back around,
Yeah.
And and for us as a generation, whether it be with like Standing Rock and like, all these things, just we're coming around and we're saying, hey, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry. Like, can you show me how to, the way? These cultures that have never lost connection with the earth, that have a like open communication, you know. It's very interesting.
Yeah. I really
Yeah,
love how you articulate all of that. It's
yeah,
it's a very useful way to look at something that is very clearly happening, and yeah, it's fascinating.
yeah.
I could talk to you forever. I think I want to wrap up with some quick fire questions. If that we'll do these somewhat as quick fire. Is that cool?
Yeah, I'll try my best. I'm a
Well, take your
talker.
time. I just don't want to keep you super long. But yeah, take your time. I want as long as we've got. So one thing we always talk about in this podcast is body image. And, as people, as women especially, our bodies and how we look in the world is something, we are constantly taught to think about. So working, in the entertainment industry and just, being a person in the world, can you talk about your relationship to your body and how it's evolved and what's helped you? And, what do you do when you're having, maybe a bad body image moment? How do you shift or out of that, or how have you kind of handled that?
Um, I don't know. For me, I don't really I think I haven't really thought about it too much. I was always just kind of like, is this shirt clean? Like, okay, it's clean, put it on, you know? Um, and yeah, I don't know. I was never, like, my sister was always trying to, like, dress me and stuff. Now I have an amazing wife that knows what's cool and what's not cool, you know? But it's my, I've learned that it's important, you know? Um, even my Guruji said, if you see a person, it's like how we look, it's not important, but it is important, right? It's like both. Because he's saying if you're walking down the street and you see a monk dressed in orange robes, you're going to relate to that person in a different way than you would a, somebody that's dressed like a different way. You know, that clothing and that image is going to invoke certain qualities within your own self, right? So when you see somebody dressing like very scary, it invokes fear. It's just simple like that. So I've always I've always tried to um, dress, I think, guess like I want to say like in a pure way, I guess, I don't know, like in a clean way, a simple way, hoping that, because it helps my mind, it helps. I'm the type of guy that like I don't want like a lot of different types of styles or clothes. I just want very simple, where I just feel clean and like this. Um, I don't know. I'm not
Yeah.
really good in this subject, but I think with our culture today, um, especially surrounding, like, I guess you're saying women and body consciousness like this, it's just tough to see. I think that our society is kind of portrayed like this, like, you see these girls or women that are just, you know, bone thin and wearing clothes that show everything pretty much, and that it's just this is the idea of like sexy and beauty, and if this isn't it, if it's not like this, then it's not beautiful, or it's not sexy, or it's not like this. That's the part that just drives me completely mad, you know and I feel bad for like a lot of, I guess, people, I guess, that buy into that. Even with
Yeah.
men too, like what's cool and what's not cool. But, you know, I don't know. It's tough to see.
Yeah, yeah. Our standards of beauty really need to shift, and having conversations like that, which is why I always bring this up, I think helps. It helps a
Yeah.
lot of people to know that you feel that way about it, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting too because like when I go to like India, you know, and I meet a person um like a yogi, right? A Baba who's covered in ash, right, from his fire, and his hair is like completely unkept, and he has no teeth, and he's wearing like a ripped cloth, and he's the most beautiful person I've ever seen.
Yeah.
That makes me think about, where does beauty come from? Beauty comes from the luminous self within each one of us. See, we have it backwards, right? We think, oh, beauty comes from the outside. If we do all this stuff, right? But there's no life there. You can almost see it sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
But when you see somebody like, I'm just using this example because it's happened to me, like a Baba or something like this, where they're so luminous and so beautiful, and the outside is completely, we would say, oh, he's so dirty like this, but you feel, oh my gosh, this person is so beautiful. You
Yeah.
know, it's that we have to pay attention to that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It can transcend all the standards of beauty or culture or anything.
Hmm.
It's really interesting. What's your favorite part of your life right now?
My favorite part of my life?
Yeah.
Um, I think like being in the mountains, because it's very new for us to live in the mountains. I've always been near the water and ocean, surfer like this. And to be in the mountains and to be in a place that really feels like home is special.
How
Yeah.
did you decide to live in Boulder? And what should I do next week when I'm there?
um, well, we were, we're like gypsies, and we were living in LA just because it was convenient for our work and all this type of stuff, but we didn't have to be there. And we really wanted to be in a place that was easy for us to be in the earth quickly, you know. And we had been coming here a long time. I've been playing here a long time, and I have family here. My wife has family here, and we both have friends here and community. So it kind of just checked all the boxes, and it was the best thing we ever did, really.
Cool.
Last year, yeah.
What are some of your favorite spots in Boulder or things that
Yeah.
people slash me should do next week?
Yeah. Well, one of our favorite spots is a place called Wonder,
Oh, yeah. It's on my
which is,
list.
yeah, okay. And we literally go there like every other day. We
Well,
like,
maybe I'll see you.
yeah, maybe you'll see us there, but um we go there quite a bit. And some of my favorite things are, have to do with the, getting out in the earth. There's a lookout called like the Gulch Lookout, I think it is, where you drive up the mountain and you can watch the sunset over the mountain range. It just clears my head, and it just is so magical. And it's only, 20 minutes up the road. Um, but like places we liked, we're kind of like recluse, because when we're home, it's a gift to not travel. So we like to, ride our bikes, different places. But as far as places we like to go, yeah, we love Wonder. We love a restaurant called Kathmandu because it just is super good and it reminds us of Nepal. And yeah, what else do we like to do? We like to go see music when our friends are in town. But a lot of it has to do with, yeah, our favorite place to take a walk is Wonderland Lake. That's a nice little walk up in the mountains. So,
All right, I'm taking note.
yeah, Wonderland Lake is very sweet. It's just a simple, you can park right there and then walk around the lake. It's nice.
Cool. I'm
Yeah.
excited. What's the best thing you've eaten in the last week?
Best thing I've eaten in the last week is Kathmandu,
Mm.
to be
Indian food?
honest. It's Nepali, yeah, Nepali Indian food, yeah.
Cool.
Same.
Okay, this is really just a question for you to recommend things in different categories, but I usually frame it this way. So you're trapped on a deserted island and you can only bring
Uh-huh.
with you one TV show, one movie, one piece of music, one book, one
Whoa.
food. I'll take you through it.
Okay.
And one person. So what would you recommend? So these can be like all-time favorites or something new
Okay.
that you want to recommend. You can recommend a couple. It's really just a way to recommend things and people and
Okay.
art.
Cool.
So start with TV show.
TV show, I would take, God, I watch a lot of TV
Yeah,
shows.
name
So,
a couple. What are you watching?
um, Well, we just finished last night Wild Wild Country, which was so creepy.
Oh, is that
Did
on
you know about
Netflix?
that? It's
No.
on Netflix, yeah, and it just came out, and it's about Osho's like community.
Oh, yeah, I've been
Yeah,
wanting to watch
it's
that.
it's creepy. So we watched that, but I would never take that to like a deserted island.
Right.
Um,
But it was good.
it was super good,
I really want to
definitely.
watch it.
You should definitely watch that. Um, we like Homeland. I like espionage type stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but we like Mozart in the Jungle, which is on Amazon. Um, what else? God, I'm drawing a blank here because I'm usually like
What are
so
some
good.
of your like
Oh, like
all-time
one of my
favorites?
favorite. Oh, honestly, one of my all-time favorite shows is Top Chef.
Oh, cool.
I
Are you a
love.
big cook?
My wife is a really good cook and she loves cooking and I'm getting more into it now. But Top Chef, I've always loved that show.
Cool.
Yeah.
What about movie? What's your all-time favorite or something you watched recently that you loved, something you want to recommend to
Um,
people?
I love A Bronx Tale. Um, I love um, one of my favorite movies is Ratatouille. Just
Oh,
love that.
you like food content.
I like food content.
I like
Yeah.
that about
It's
you.
yummy. It's yum yum.
Yeah, that is
Yeah,
a really cute movie.
I love Ratatouille. Um, I like a lot of chick flicks.
Me
So
too. Me too. What do you like? Tell me more.
so like I like God, like Notting Hill is
Oh,
such a
it's so good.
such a good movie. I've seen it like a million times. Like Pretty Woman, I could watch like forever.
Julie Roberts fan.
Yeah, Julia Roberts is the jam.
Have you seen
Uh,
My Best Friend's Wedding?
oh, of course. Come
I
on.
think that's maybe the best romantic comedy
Yeah,
ever.
that's
It's
a
like
good one.
such a classic, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, so any type of rom-com I'd bring.
That makes me so happy. That makes you got like 12 more points in this podcast for that. Like, and you were already killing it. So this is, yeah,
Good.
beyond. Okay, what about a food that you'd never get sick of, like your last meal food or something you'd want with you?
I would eat khichdi every day because I could eat khichdi every day anyway.
It's so good. There's this really great Ayurvedic restaurant in my neighborhood. If you're ever in New
Oh
York, have
yeah.
you been to Divya's Kitchen?
Oh yeah, I actually it's so funny you said that because when we were there last in the fall, we were playing at Irving Plaza
Uh-huh.
and we postmated khichdi from there and it was one
Oh,
of the best khichdi's I've had.
oh, cool. Well, next time in New York, we'll have to
So good.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that place is really good.
Yeah, she's really cool, and she did the podcast. We actually did a live episode there. So next time
Oh,
you're
cool.
in New York, we'll have to get together and go. It's such a cool place, and you
Yeah,
would like it. I get takeout from there all the time too, but the actual restaurant's really beautiful, and how it's decorated, it's really calm in there. I think you'd like it.
very
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, I could eat khichdi every day and everybody knows that about me. I love
yeah,
khichdi.
it's so good. Okay, what about music? What are some things you want to recommend? What do you listen to recently? How
Uh,
often do you listen to music as a musician?
Right now, I am really obsessed with this rapper named Sampa the Great. She's from Australia. Well, she's was born in Africa, but she's from Australia, and it's Sampa the Great, Sampa the Great, and
Cool.
she's just incredible. Like I cannot stop listening to her. Um, that's what I'm listening to now. But one of my favorite bands is a band called Midnight. It's just Midnite, and they're a reggae band from St. Croix, and the singer is just has such a oh God rooted like old ancient voice, and he's just in a trance. I just love listening to it. It's kind of like it's probably like 80% of what I listen to. So I'd bring a lot of Midnight, Sampa the Great, yeah, into
Cool.
that.
What about podcasts? Do you listen to any other podcasts?
I listen to a little bit of podcasts um I listen to a lot of like the Ram Dass Network.
Mm-hmm.
podcast because they have a lot of great like teachers. Like one of my favorite persons to listen to is Jack Cornfield.
Yeah, he's great.
He's just so like sweet and calming in his voice. He's got great stories and he's funny and witty and
Yeah.
I really like Jack Cornfield podcasts. Um, I like Kali Mandir, the temple that I lived at in Laguna. They have their own podcast, so I listen to a lot of satsang from their podcast as well. But yeah, those are probably my two main go-tos.
Cool. Yeah, I think I must have missed you at the Ram Dass retreat. I was there in 2017 at the winter one, but
Oh, in Hanuman Gardens or in Maui?
in Maui.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was at the one before.
Yeah, yeah, but it was such a great experience, and that's where I was introduced to Jack Cornfield, and
Yeah,
it was yeah, it was really cool.
yeah.
What about one more thing I kind of want to ask about and talk about because it's these podcast interviews are always such a mirror of what's going on in my own life. So, how do you feel about decisions and decision making and intuition and being decisive or indecisive? I don't know if it's a Saturn return thing that I'm in or it's just kind of my thing right now. So I'd love your, kind of thoughts, advice. Where are you with decisions and decisiveness?
Well, I think you're asking the wrong person. I'm so bad at making decisions.
Blind
Um,
leading the blind.
yeah. Um, yeah, I'm a Libra moon, so I'm always like taking in both sides and seeing both sides of the coin, I guess, which can make it kind of it's a good quality, but it can make it hard to make decisions. Um, but yeah, I think like my wife, for example, is extremely psychic and kind of intuitive, and she'll have a feeling, and she'll be like, "Nope, I'm not doing that. I'm doing this," you know. Um, Whereas for me, I mean, yeah, I just, I some things I don't give a lot of thought to. I'm like, oh, okay, like yeah, that's fine. And some things I just can't make a decision to save my life, So I think it has to do with the subject matter, but um, yeah, I really don't know how to answer the question
Yeah.
because I'm not really the best person at. I don't want to give like some made up answer.
Well, that was actually helpful. It makes me feel less alone. So,
Yeah, yeah, I think like the problem is I think that you know the first time I went to India, I came back and the next day I woke up and I went to the grocery store. It was the first place I went. And I walked into the grocery store and I had an anxiety attack because there were so many choices.
hmm
You walk into the bread aisle, there's like 25 different types of bread.
yeah.
There's gluten-free, there's oats, there's 7 grain, there's whole wheat, there's white bread, there's flaxseed, you're just like, holy fuck, like,
Yeah.
where I just came from a place, right, where you'd walk to the corner vegetable seller and whatever vegetables they had there, that's the vegetables you're going to get. If
Right.
they don't have carrots, you're not going to eat carrots, So, um, I feel like we've been flooded with like over information, you know.
hmm
Our society is so big on like knowing everything, you know, but we know nothing about ourselves. It's so weird. It's like we have to explain every little thing, where some things are just better left unexplained, I think, right? But as a result, we want to have all the different varieties. We want to have it all, right? You're living in New York, right? Like any type of cuisine that you want in this moment, you could go get right now
Yeah.
because that's how it is, So we're flooded with information. We're flooded with choices, which I think I don't know if that's natural. So I think it's hard for us to make decisions because, we're in this place now where we're like, oh my God, like I have like 11 different choices I can make,
Yeah.
And so even in a little sense of trying to go buy bread, that's going to affects you. It affects you. It's like, oh, I don't know what decision to make. I don't know. So when it comes to like even an internal decision, we think, oh, but what are all my options? What are all my options? But, it's just a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah, and I think it causes this decision fatigue. Like you said, we're not, as humans, meant to naturally have this much choice. And in our society, we do, much like how, we spend a lot of our lives in this fight or flight mode that, we aren't meant, is in a state, obviously, we're meant to live in as much as we do. And I think decisions, It's kind of the same thing. It's like we go through this decision-making exhaustion that makes us crazy.
Definitely. I like that, decision fatigue.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Trevor. It was a delight talking to you. I had so much fun.
I hope you liked it.
And the name of this podcast, like I mentioned, it's called Let It Out. I wrote this book a couple of years ago about journaling, and I'd love to send you a copy or give you one in Boulder or something.
Oh, cool.
But do you ever journal? Is that something that you do? Do you obviously write your music, but do you ever write to process things?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, big writer. I save all my journals, so I have a whole box of them. It's definitely important.
Oh, wow, cool. I always just love asking about that. But anyway, the name of the podcast, like I said, is Let It Out. So did I wring you dry? Is there anything else that you wish I would have asked that you hoped you would have gotten to talk about or plug? Anything else you want to let out?
No, I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Good. Well, thank you. This was great. People can obviously find you on Spotify and iTunes, and I'll have all the links to all your social media and everything, and they should come see you in a show.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to be touring a lot this summer, so keep your eyes open.
Cool. Okay, that was my episode with Trevor Hall. I love him. Check out his music. Check out his new album. It's a delight. I've been listening to it all week, and I really enjoy it. Episode 222. This is pretty cool. This is a lucky one for me because it's my lucky number. If you want to support the podcast, support the sponsors, share it with a friend, leave a review on iTunes. That would be really cool. And if you want to start a podcast yourself, honestly, podcasting has been the greatest thing I've ever done. I think podcasting is the new networking. I think podcasting is a welcome phenomenon that I hope never goes away, and I really don't think it will. I love it so much. And I also love you. Thank you so much for listening. Check out LaunchPod. The link is in the show notes. Also follow it on Instagram for updates, and you'll learn a lot just there. And the code to get $100 off is Let It Out. And to save money, because the early bird special, the price is going to go up $100. So you can actually save $200 if you sign up now and use the code. So make sure you do that. If you want to do it, just sign up now. It's easier. And I love you guys. I'll talk to you next week with a brand new episode. The emoji is the lemon because I'm drinking lemon water, and that's all I can think of right now. I love you guys so much. Talk to you next week. Bye. This episode is brought to you in part by something I use and love called Acuity Scheduling. It's like a personal assistant for your schedule, only better. With Acuity Scheduling, people can quickly view your calendar in real time and, from your availability, select the date and time that works best for them to meet with you. They can even pay in advance if they're booking a session with you, and they can cancel or reschedule on their own without having to clog your inbox. With Acuity, you can instantly schedule with real-time availability, meaning no double bookings and no more wasted time. You can set up automatic confirmations and reminders, and what I love most is that you can customize the colors and add your logo. Everything looks super sharp. To try it out, you can get an extended 45-day trial when you sign up totally for free at acuityscheduling.com/letitout. To get that 45-day free trial, go to acuityscheduling/letitout. This week's episode is supported by something called Fit Fab Fun. It's a seasonal subscription box with full-size beauty, fitness, fashion, and lifestyle products. It retails for $49.99, but has a value for over $200. I don't even know how they do that, but that's amazing. And if you use the coupon code LETITOUT, that's Let It Out, you can get $10 off your first box, which you'll find at www.fitfabfun.com. I think it's a really interesting concept. It's really cool. This Fit Fab Fun box feels like Christmas 4 times a year when it comes in the mail, and the products include everything from makeup to candles, accessories, self-care products like a massage roller, travel products, beauty finds. It's really great, and you can customize the products, add on what you want each season. It's different and it's a surprise. And the thing that I really love is the membership also includes access to Fit Fab Fun TV, which has a variety of workouts and meditations that you can do anywhere. And I love that because I love to do workout videos at home. I think it's so much fun, and I really like Fit Fab Fun, and I think you guys will too. Just check it out. Again, you can get $10 off your first box by using the code LETITOUT at checkout. That's Let It Out. And the items include everything from Tarte Makeup, which is a natural makeup line I like, Juice Beauty, which you know I also really love. There's so many great things in there. It's really fun, and I think you guys will really like it. Thanks, Fit Fab Fun. The music you're hearing behind me now and all other original music in this episode is composed by Carolyn Pennypacker Riggs. The album art is by artist Zoe Harmon, and this podcast is produced and edited by Amanda Sharf and hosted by me, Katie Dalebout. Check out our website for show notes to everything mentioned.